Coming up on Now See This.
If I would have cut away, the parachute would have torn my head off.
Skaters fall head over heels for a new trick, until one gets knocked for a loop. A police chase on December 31st becomes a New Year's bash. And when a young auto racer tries to make a name for himself, disaster is up and coming. There's a bear in the air, a hound underground, and a moose on the juice. Think you've seen it all? Now see this. Everyone should see the world from 13,000 feet up. But few have the courage to do it like this. That's why skydiver Jimmy Pouchert brought along his helmet cam to document one of the many jumps at the World Free Fall Convention in Quincy, Illinois. Pouchert's camera captured a spectacular first-hand view of his descent. Little does he know, it'll also yield one of the most remarkable jumps ever caught on tape. He soars over the clouds at close to 180 miles per hour. For skydivers, this is the most thrilling part, the free fall. Riding high on adrenaline, Pouchert wants to wait until the last possible second to deploy his chute. But a quick check of his wrist altimeter tells him it's time to slow down. He releases his parachute and waits for physics to do the rest. Suddenly, his graceful free fall turns into a terrifying downward spiral. The parachute's brake line is snagged on Pouchert's helmet, and he can't get it undone. He's left with only two options: release the helmet along with the $1,500 camera, or hope that the line untangles itself. With less than 1,000 feet until impact, it's an easy decision. Pouchert rips off his helmet with a jolt, but somehow the camera stays tangled in the brake line. Unbelievably, the tape continues rolling, catching a 1 in a million shot of Pouchert's shocked face as the parachute struggles to level out. Finally, he touches down. Exhausted from his close call, he does what comes naturally. He falls. But his situation was even more grave than it first seemed.
We had just gotten out of the jet. It was a great jump. We went tracking. I tracked off by myself. I was all by myself. Threw my pilot chute out. Right as I threw it out, I felt the brake line. I knew it was snagged on something, but I couldn't find what it was snagged on. So in the video, you see the ground just starts spinning and spinning.
In this scenario, most skydivers would have cut away their main chute and used their reserve. But Jimmy knew better.
I couldn't cut away because if I would have cut away the parachute, the only connection would have been on my head, and it would have torn my head off. So I undid the chin strap, and it got pulled off my head.
The fact that his camera caught the rest of the harrowing descent was sheer luck. But now he's got a nice memento of his entire ordeal. Though it's unlikely he will ever need a reminder of this experience.
And I look over and my camera's just filming me, and you can see me, I'm just breathing. I'm like, oh God, oh God. It was just so scary. I almost cried. Maybe I did a little.
This is Formula Renault Racing. It's one step below Formula One. But being fast, confident, and courageous is still the formula for becoming a great driver. And dashing Danny Watts is the complete package. Currently holding the fastest Formula Renault lap ever. But Danny's career is about to take a very fast turn for the worse. On the Oulton track in England, Danny aggressively challenges the leaders. Gunning his car to 129 miles per hour, he has no idea he's steering toward utter disaster. In past years, this corner has claimed lives. But today, Danny dodges its death grip and walks away.
The first point I realised I was in trouble was when I touched wheels and the car started to go airborne. So I just had to take my hands off the wheel so I didn't break my wrists, and then shut my eyes and wait for it to all come to an end.
He went from passing to pandemonium in under a second.
It happened so quickly that I didn't get time to think about what was happening. It was just a click of the fingers and that was it, I was over.
The bruises he receives hurt immediately, but Danny doesn't feel the real impact of the crash until later.
A few days after the race I saw the video and I couldn't believe how massive the shunt was, and it did scare me slightly, but it was a lot worse watching it on video than what it was in it because I kept my eyes shut.
In the spirit of a true champion, 5 days later, he was back behind the wheel, racing and winning. He now knows that there's more at stake than the checkered flag.
I thought this probably will be the end of my life. I was a lucky boy.
You're watching an infrared video from a camera that usually searches pipes for blockages. Today, it's searching for a 45-pound dog named Nico. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, Jeannie and Michael Shore were walking this trail when suddenly their dog Nico got loose from his leash and fell down an abandoned 200-foot well. Rescue crews are on the scene, but they aren't equipped for the depth of the well. Thankfully, a Roto-Rooter van is nearby, and the company volunteers their infrared cameras to try to locate Nico. Alive or not. The fire department lowers the camera 50 feet. No sign of Nico. 100 feet. 150 feet. Still nothing. But at 178 feet, the camera captures something that stuns everyone. Nico is alive, but in bad shape. He's dehydrated and in shock, with contusions all over his body and covered in bugs. By now, Nico has been at the bottom of this well for more than a day and a half. It doesn't look like he'll make it much longer. Now that they've found him, the question is how to raise this dog out of the well before he falls even further. But the Santa Fe Fire Department knows exactly what to do. They lower a cable attached to a loop collar, like the ones used by animal control officers.
Don't close the loop, but take the whole thing up a little.
Once the dog has gratefully slipped his head into the loop, the real challenge begins. Lifting him 178 feet safely. One tiny error, and it'll be all over for Nico.
You've got him just fine.
Come on, Nico!
The rescuers pull steadily and cautiously, but then the unthinkable happens. The camera keeps moving up, but Nico is no longer attached to the rope. When the well narrows unexpectedly, Nico's head was squeezed out of the loop, and he plummeted 100 feet back down the well. In his weakened condition, it seems impossible he could have survived another fall. Jeannie is inconsolable. She is certain that this was his only chance. But unbelievably, the infrared camera descends again to reveal a shell-shocked Nico. Desperate for another chance at survival, he is hanging on the sides of the well with all four paws. But now rescuers know that there's an even bigger problem. The only way to get Nico up through those narrow spots is to tighten the noose, severely restricting his oxygen supply. If they don't get him out fast enough, Nico will die of strangulation. It's a very risky operation, but it's the last chance this dog has. Determined to bring Nico up alive, rescuers restart their efforts. For the Shores, the waiting is torture. But finally, Nico is unconscious from the oxygen deprivation, but his veterinarian quickly resuscitates him. Nico will make a full recovery from his traumatic tumble, thanks to the devotion of his owners and rescuers.
He's just the happiest dog and the best friend we've ever had.
But Nico's rescue isn't just a blessing for the shores. By finding this well, he may have saved other people, likely children, from repeating his nasty fall. And thanks to his strength and perseverance, Nico is now everyone's best friend. It's New Year's Eve in the swampy backwoods of Tallapoosa, Georgia, 15 minutes until midnight. And the ex-con in this car has already made his resolution: stay out of jail. Unfortunately, he's got an old acquaintance that won't be forgotten. Officer Brian Rutherford of the Tallapoosa PD. Rutherford has identified this as a stolen vehicle, and he's all too familiar with the repeat offender behind the wheel. The suspect recognizes the officer too, but he's not really in the mood to catch up on old times. He warns his old foe to stay back by slamming on the brakes. If the officer's airbag deploys, the chase is over. Luckily, it doesn't, and Rutherford stays on the man's tail. But if there's one thing this felon has proven, it's that he never learns the first time. Not wanting to put his own car out of commission and risk losing the suspect, Officer Rutherford decides to give the man a little room. But the ground is wet, and when the habitual criminal slams on the brakes once more, Rutherford's tires slip. The officer is fed up, and instead of waiting for another accident, he intentionally goes in for the bump. He pushes the suspect's car into a field where his tires get stuck in the mud. Rutherford jumps out with his gun drawn. The suspect tries to pull away, so the officer shoots out his tires. Ironically, the flat tires actually do better in the mud, and he's able to drive off. But he doesn't get far down the road. Backup is waiting. And before most people have uncorked their first bottle of champagne, this guy's party is over, and he's on his way back to jail. Punks, hooligans, social deviants. Most skateboarders have been called it all. But now that the sport has attracted big-time sponsors, special skate parks have been set up all around the world, like this one in Tampa, Florida. Today it's hosting the Tampa Skate Pro Tournament. It's the final day of competition, and this is the event everyone's been waiting for, the Loop of Death. The first 3 skaters to successfully make it through will win $1,000 each. But before they can go for the prize, every contender must make a series of practice loops with crash pads in place. Some skaters prove right away that they have the skills to pay the bills. Others aren't quite as smooth. This is Jake Brown. He's one of the not-so-smooth ones. After everybody is somewhere between warmed up and beat up, it's time to take away the safety net and go for the big money.
Move the plan! Move the plan!
The first one up is pro skater Al Partanen. With the support of the crowd behind him, he kicks away. Amazingly, he makes it on his first try. One of the $3,000 checks is gone, and the bar has been set. Meanwhile, Jake is back on the ramp. He sets up, takes off, and falls down. But he stands and shakes it off, ready for another try. The next contender is Peter Hewitt. Peter launches through the 360 almost effortlessly. He also claims the second of 3 prize checks. There's only one award left, and the ever-persistent Jake Brown is determined to make it his.
Come on, Jake! You know you got it now!
But sometimes determination can only take you so far. Once again, Jake takes a spill, and once again, he walks it off as the next contender gets ready. That next contender is Bob Burnquist. Like Jake, he's taken some falls today. But with $1,000 on the line, there's no time to think about that. It's obviously disappointing for Jake Brown, but it's not about the money anymore. It's become a matter of pride. Unfortunately, though the moral support is nice, it'll take physical support to keep him up. Jake makes it through the loop, but falls before completing the run. He runs up the ramp to give it one more shot. But first, he's going to step aside to let Skate Park of Tampa owner Brian Schaefer take a turn.
Come on, Brian!
Schaefer blows a kiss to the crowd and gets ready. But the loop of death is about to bite the hand that built it. Brian slams down hard and is knocked unconscious.
Everybody back up! Open up!
Schaefer has rushed away with a concussion and a broken hand. And now, there's only Jake. And there's no money at stake, and the loop has just viciously claimed a victim. Everyone would understand if Jake called it a day, but that's just not his style.
The worst is over, Jake! Let's see it!
With one last burst, Jake drops off the ramp. The crowd erupts. Jacob Brown stays on his board from start to finish, picking up major style points along the way. In the end, there's no check waiting for him, but to be mobbed by his peers is reward enough. And now he knows that practice, and more practice
Come on, Jake! You know you got it now!
eventually makes perfect. Los Angeles, California. On a holiday weekend, sheriff's deputies are definitely on duty as they fly to the mountains north of the city on a rescue call.
We copied the call. We probably have an ETA of about 3 minutes.
Frankly, these guys would rather be at a picnic. But once kind-hearted rescuer Terry Asherin hears the victim is a 7-year-old girl who's been bitten by a poisonous snake, all thoughts of time off disappear.
My area is purplish already. It happened to me just a few minutes ago.
It's great that someone got to the phone right away and notified us because time is of the essence in a snakebite victim.
Well, we may have to take one of the parents with us.
Yeah,
that's fine.
try to keep the helicopter turning. We're going to scoop and run.
As Terry preps his gear for the rescue, his thoughts turn to the potential dangers for young victims of snake bites.
Snake bites can cause serious neurological problems to children. In the past, I even had a child stop breathing with a envenomation from a green Mojave, which is a very serious situation.
There's no information whether the girl was bitten by a common rattler or the deadly green Mojave snake. Terry prepares for the worst. Finally, the pilot spots the family waiting with a ranger below.
And luckily, the parents of the child were at a intersection where the helicopter could land safely.
As soon as the chopper touches down, Terry hits the ground running.
Baby, let me see her. Yes, that's fine. And then we're going to Huntington Memorial Hospital. Just one. You can take your vehicle, okay? It's okay. Okay. Are you okay, sweetheart? Where were you bitten? Okay. Your mommy's coming too, okay?
The little girl is an animal lover named Diana Sandoval. Diana's mother, Alma, is terrified for her injured daughter.
When they took Diana off my arms to put her in the helicopter, I mean, I don't know, I was just praying to God that she was going to be okay because she wasn't crying, and that frightened me.
Don't let me get in there and do this IV.
En route to the hospital, Terry realizes young Diana is too traumatized to describe the snake that bit her.
I was very concerned because we didn't know the type of the snake.
Once a tourniquet is wrapped around Diana's leg to isolate the venom, Terry examines the bite wound for clues.
I don't see much swelling change, but we've got about 1.5 inches spread between the fangs on this snake, so that indicates a fairly good-sized snake.
It depends on how smart and how old the snake is. If he knows he can't eat you, he's not going to waste his venom on you. Or if he's frightened enough or you surprise him, he can inject you with all of the venom. So it's an unpredictable situation.
Before Diana can be treated, Terry will need to coax more information out of her. But for now, his main concern is to make the frightened girl comfortable.
Boy, what a trooper this little girl is, isn't she? What a trooper. She knows what's going on.
As a parent, I treat all of the children like they're my own, and that's a little hard on all of the paramedics that treat children.
Gates are cut up there.
But there are other reasons for keeping Diana calm. A low pulse rate helps prevent the spread of venom in her bloodstream, buying her crucial minutes.
It's the speed of getting that patient to a hospital that has antivenom is one of the most important things that we can do to help that patient.
Once the crew arrives on the landing pad, Diana is put on a gurney to be hurried inside. But before she can be properly treated, there's still one thing Terry needs to know.
Okay. Do you know what color the snake was? Was it real? Can you give me a color?
It was black.
Black snake. It wasn't a real pretty green, was it? Okay.
Terry's encouraged to hear the snake was not green. Then Alma passes on the information that her husband is driving to the hospital with the dead reptile in the van.
And he's going to be bringing that snake in good, because that'll tell us exactly what kind of snake, and that's going to also give us some type of information how to treat it.
Soon it is confirmed that Diana was indeed bitten by a South Pacific rattlesnake, and she can now be treated accordingly.
We brought you to a hospital. Your mommy's right behind us, so there'll be doctors here that are going to give you some medicine to make you all better. Okay?
Although a rattlesnake's venom is less dangerous than green Mojave's, it still takes days for Diana's leg to heal.
She was in the hospital for 5 days. After the second day, that's when they found a pulse on her leg. And the surgeon told us that she was going to be okay. That was the great news we had that day.
In spite of her traumatic encounter with the rattlesnake, little Diana still considers herself a friend of the animals.
Well, she wants to be a vet. She loves animals. Don't matter, even she will even carry a snake at this time. I won't.
But Diana has love for people too, especially the man who saved her.
The person that helped us, he went to see her at the hospital, and she was very happy to see him.
And in spite of the countless rescues he makes, Terry Asheron will always hold a special place in his heart for the little girl.
Diane was, only way I can say it, probably the strongest little child I've handled in a long time.
Everyone knows what a nuisance it can be when a wild crowd moves into the neighborhood. The ruckus, the strange traffic, and inevitably, the police.
For the time being, if you stay inside, that'll probably make things a whole lot better.
But if you think your neighborhood is bad, just imagine trying to handle a couple of real animals. Before you know it, your street has become a police state, just like this one in Spokane, Washington, where a menacing moose is on the loose.
We will not use deadly force unless there's imminent danger to persons.
Officers don't want anyone to get hit with a tranquilizer dart, except the four-legged fugitive. This 700-pound public enemy reportedly got lost in the dark and wandered into town.
Okay, what's the status on the moose right now?
But wandering has given way to wall hopping until a tranquilizer dart cuts short this renegade spree. She fights the effects for as long as she can, before this party animal insists on passing out in a very unladylike fashion. The snoozing moose is carted off in the paddy wagon. But she leaves behind plenty of evidence of her wild time.
Hi think it's just trash. I really don't think there's many. Oh, well, that's a big one. Right there.
Across the continent, in a small New England town, this local resident simply wandered into the wrong neighborhood and was not very warmly welcomed.
And I was told there was a bear out in my tree. A bear? Oh, no, there can't be a bear. Anything but a bear.
Yeah, we had a 250-pound or so male bear that's been in trouble in the neighborhood for a while. This morning he was acting a little on the aggressive side.
Realizing quickly that he was clearly out of his element, the bear tried to lay low and fit in. But his treehouse hiding spot is quickly discovered. Police don't get fancy when it comes to forming a plan. They intend to chill the bear out with muscle relaxants.
They're so relaxed that I've seen them fall 70 feet out of a tree and just get up an hour later and walk away. They're a little sore.
The strategy works, sort of. The bear is knocked out, but he's still in the tree. Police are forced to go up, rig a pulley, and lower this scruffy suspect before he wakes up.
Slow! Going! Oh. Slow! Slow!
Go ahead. Okay, keep coming, keep coming.
Slow!
Get around the other side.
Steve, you got him?
The other side.
This troublemaker will now be escorted to the city limits, hopefully never to return. After all, no one wants their neighborhood turned into a zoo.
Slow!